Hello and welcome to another episode of Words with Myself.
A lot of us have such difficult time deciding what we want because we limit ourselves and our ability to imagine, our ability to dream. We always destroy our ideas, ruin our dreams before we even allow them to develop. This defense mechanism is so ingrained into our way of thinking that if you was to ask yourself, what do I want from life? If I could just snap my fingers and get whatever I want, what would that be? It's hard for us to push past those barriers. It's hard for us to actually dream without limitation, without thinking, oh no, well, I can't do that because of this, or, well, that's not practical. It's hard for us to even dream without a good justification or a reason. You might ask a child, what do you want from life? And they're like, I want to be a builder. And you say to them, well, why do you want to do that? And they're like, I don't know. I just want to be a builder. They don't need some reasonable, rational justification of why they want to do what they want to do. But as adults, we feel like we must have something to justify our desires and our dreams and our wants. And because many of us have responsibilities, we believe that we have to put those in front of our ability to dream. You have to think about how your dreaming could possibly affect your family and your workplace and your friends and all of this kind of stuff. It's hard to dream freely, to truly ask yourself what you want without any limits, without anything controlling you or pushing you in a certain direction. People might suddenly answer, well, I want money. And you say, well, why do you want money? What is it about money that you want? And then you find out that it's not the money that they want, but they want freedom, for instance. And then you say, okay, well, I give you all of this freedom, right? You have all day to do whatever you want to do. And what do you go do now? And then they say, well, I don't really know. But I guess I'd go traveling. And they say, okay, well, where would you go? And I say, well, I'd have to think about it, I'd go to the Mediterranean, or I'd go to Bali or Indonesia, wherever it is. They might come out with a place. And then you say, so what you want from life is to go to Indonesia. And they're like, no, it's not, I just want to be free. I want to be free. I want to do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it. But what most people don't understand is that kind of freedom is actually more of an inhibition than it is a liberation. Because with total freedom, with a total lack of responsibility, we end up with a game that isn't fun anymore. There becomes no point in actually playing. Sure, it might be fun to go and do whatever you want and have total freedom for a short period of time because you're so used to not having any freedom or very limited freedom. The idea of having total freedom seems really compelling. It seems like the one thing that we really, really want. Whereas really, if we had total freedom and had it for a very long time, we would probably feel empty. It would begin to erode from the game. If we play out the scenario and you say, okay, you have all the money in the world, you can do whatever you want, you can go wherever you want, you can go do your traveling. How does that look for the next 20 years? What are you spending your time doing? Sooner or later, you will decide to do something that erodes your freedom, that sacrifices your freedom for something meaningful. Because meaning is the currency of responsibility. And it could be argued that the freedom people desire is freedom from responsibility. So as soon as you begin to enter one end of the extreme, you either end up with a lot of responsibility, but a lot of meaning in your life, or you end up going with no responsibilities, total freedom, but your life feels callous and empty. There's no real point. You can do anything at any point in time, so why do anything? It's sort of like the Alan Watts quote where he's talking about if you could dream any dream every night, sooner or later you would dream a dream where you were living the life that you're living right now. Because we, to some extent, enjoy the mystery. We want a challenge, or we want a unique experience, something that's going to surprise us. If life was predictable and we knew where it was going and we knew exactly what would happen, we would be bored. We would no longer have a vested interest in playing the game. It would cease to matter. So it's not that we want a complete lack of freedom, and it's not that we want total freedom. What we want is balance. We want something in between. We want responsibility that nurtures our soul, that makes us feel connected and fulfilled. But we want to be able to have time to pursue those things that we're interested in, to be able to take risks and embrace opportunities that we have in our lives. For instance, I'm sure a lot of us have a work and then hobbies, and we would like to spend more time doing our hobbies than we would our work, or we would just like to be able to have time and energy to do the things that we are interested in. But we feel like our responsibilities drain us so much to the point where we don't have the time nor the energy to actually do what we want to do. And, for many of us, we work all week, and then by the time the weekend comes around, we don't have loads and loads of energy for doing all of this fun stuff that we wanted to be planned. We're exhausted. We just need rest. And time isn't the only component that we need for doing what we want to do. We want to enjoy it. We want to feel like we have the energy to be present and embrace what we're doing. But if all we're doing is working and then looking after the family and, doing the washing and this is broken and that's got to be fixed and all this kind of life stuff, we end up with very little in the pot to actually spend on the things that we love. And then all we're doing is working our whole lives and then resting our whole lives just to try and have a little bit of time to actually pursue what we want to do. But if we were to have all the time in the world, if we didn't have to do anything at all, if we didn't have to look after anyone, we didn't have to go to work and we didn't have to earn money, it might seem like this idyllic, perfect life. But really, like working on something that you're truly passionate about, giving your energy to something, that is not the problem. If you were doing something that you really loved, and that was how you were manifesting and creating your wealth and abundance, you wouldn't feel like doing that was a chore. You would feel like doing that was something that you wanted to do and were happy to do. The problem is there's all this other stuff that we feel like we have to do, or, maybe we do have to do it. There's certainly aspects of, I'm pretty sure, every job where at some point there is something that you have to do that you don't enjoy that part of it. For instance, like writing books. I would really like to just spend my time writing books, but in terms of doing all of the marketing and pushing out on social media and creating a presence and all that kind of stuff, like that doesn't really interest me. That would be my least favorite part of doing that. I would just want to write good books, send them to someone, let them handle it, and continue just focusing on writing. But it's not that simple. And we often, when we're dreaming, we try to dream of perfection. We don't dream of what we would actually want and sit in that reality and explore what it would feel like and, the entirety of that experience, not just the good parts that we think. You might be thinking about being a movie star and you think, oh yeah, red carpets and Hollywood parties or whatever it is that you'd be interested in. And you'd be thinking that that was the good part, but you don't see countless hours memorizing scripts and, all of this kind of stuff that you would have to do. What you see, what you're dreaming of, is the perfect highlight moments of that experience, not all of it, with all of the negative parts and the parts that are terrible and the lack of privacy and all this kind of stuff. So when we dream, as much as I want you to dream without limitations, I want you to dream with a realistic perspective, to truly immerse yourself in that dream, to sit with the experience, to understand what it would be like to truly embody that life, what that would mean for you. Would you enjoy it? Would you enjoy all aspects of it? What wouldn't you enjoy? And would that be worth the cost? And there's a good chance that it would be. If your dreams and aspirations are something of an easy nature. You want an easy life, or you want to just achieve it without struggle. You don't want the pain. You don't want the suffering. You don't want any negative part of this life that you are dreaming. You are not dreaming of a real experience, because what we deem to be negative or bad parts, those aren't limitations. Those are natural laws that we cannot go past. You cannot have the good without the bad. You cannot have the bad without the good. You need some kind of symbiosis in life to make it life. Otherwise, you're dreaming of something that isn't this existence. You're dreaming of something that is separate from the human experience. But the human experience is duality. It is both. You have the good and the bad. You have parts that you will find easy and parts that you'll find hard. That is the nature of existence. And if you truly want to get to grips with how you want to spend this life, what you want to do with this limited experience that you have, with the limited time that you have, if you truly understand what you want to do, then you must set yourself free. You must allow yourself to dream without limitations. But you must also encapsulate the whole experience. You need to delve deep into the desires that you have without judgment, without saying that these are good thoughts and these are bad thoughts and that I can't think like that because then I'll be a bad person, or if I do that, then maybe I'll be a good person. These are all irrational judgments. We are making those through the lens of information that isn't ours. It's not what our spirit is telling us. If you listen to your true calling, if you listen to what you are drawn to and you think, oh my God, like I haven't even thought about this stuff that I want to do, but I remember when I was a child, I used to dream of doing this, or I used to love painting pictures, and I think that I might want to be a painter. It's those moments that draw us in, that reveal a little glimmer of what we want, of what we have been telling ourselves for so long that we can't have. And often it's not that we don't know what we want, it's that we've just told ourselves that we can't have it for so long that it doesn't even feel like an option anymore. It doesn't feel like something that's allowed. And we convince ourselves so heavily that we don't want it that it becomes lost. We think like, oh, well, I can't even have this. And now I'm telling myself that I don't even want this. Like, this isn't even something for me. So then I have to construct my identity as somebody who doesn't want this thing and who that almost repulses me. So you have to become the opposite of this thing that you want in order to completely shut it out from yourself, to avoid any doubt and convince yourself fully that it's not something that you want. You might want friends and relationships with people, but because you find it difficult or because you've been hurt in the past, you convince yourself that you don't even want people around. You don't want relationships. You don't want friends. You don't want anyone near you. In order to adopt that mindset, you then have to become an introvert. You have to avoid people. You have to no longer talk to people, and that makes you more outcast. It makes you more shut away. So from going from, oh, I'd really like some nice friends and I'd like a nice relationship or whatever it is that you wanted, you've then turned yourself into somebody who even the very idea of getting involved with people seems like the worst idea ever. It seems the complete opposite of yourself. But you convinced yourself that that was how you should be. You convinced yourself that you weren't worthy or you couldn't have what you wanted. And that is where we have to get better at unpicking and doing the shadow work, to reveal the layers beneath the bullshit that we've convinced ourselves of, rather than just accepting the face value things or responses that we give ourselves. We might say, well, what do you want? And you're like, freedom or money or whatever. Or what don't you want? I don't want relationships. I don't want this. I don't want that. Rather than just accepting those responses that you give at face value, dig into them. Truly understand where that come from. Even if you say, I don't want this, understand it. Understand why you don't want it. Understand where that comes from. You might have a very good reason for why you don't want what you don't want. And that's perfectly fine. All you will do is solidify that belief. But for a lot of things that you are dead certain on, if you truly analyze them, even just to a point where you are not 100% convinced, you will be closer to the truth than how you are when you are convinced. Because when you look deep enough, it's hard to be convinced of anything. It's hard to be convinced that you're real, that you're even here, that you're thinking and breathing and having these thoughts, and it's not just a dream or illusion or anything else. Like, it's hard to be that certain of anything in life. So rather than looking for absolute certainties, look for the discrepancies. Look for areas where you think that you are convinced, but you're not sure why. Those hold the truth. Where you're not sure why you're doing what you're doing, or you're not sure why you believe what you believe. And even then, we can convince ourselves that we know the reason why. And it's still not the reason. There's still more layers, there's still more depth to it. So before you decide truly what you want, go deep. Spend time investigating with yourself what it is that you want, what it is that you don't want, why you don't like certain things, why you do like certain things. Get that relationship to a deep level with yourself. Sit with yourself and make that time and space to truly understand yourself and not pass judgment, not say that you're stupid for thinking certain things or that you're ridiculous for wanting certain things. It needs to be a place of freedom, a place where you can dream without limits. Thank you for listening.